Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever felt completely drained by the opinions of people who, let's be honest, contribute absolutely nothing to your growth, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're going to dive deep into a really profound psychological intervention pulled straight from our source material. We're going to unpack that exhausting cycle of constantly seeking external validation, and much more importantly, we're going to talk about how to break completely free from it. Stop stressing about people who don't care. So let's just jump right in with a hard-hitting question to force a little immediate self-reflection. When you shrink your ambition just to avoid provoking envy in others, who actually benefits? I mean, really think about it for a second. Your energy isn't being drained by your actual goals. It's being drained by rehearsing these imaginary conversations and fearing invisible criticism. And who is uplifted by all this worry? Well, it's not your family. It's not your future. The only beneficiary of your anxiety is the very person who is completely indifferent toward your life in the first place. And because of that, every single day you face a choice. You see, the moment you stop seeking validation, your power basically doubles. You can either be the servant of opinions, a prisoner controlled by the whispers of doubters, constantly altering your path just to please people who don't even care, or you can be the master of destiny. A person who governs their own mind becomes practically unstoppable. And the crazy thing is, the difference between these two states of being is just a single, deliberate decision. Which brings us to Section 1, the hidden cost of approval and the invisible price you pay for it. It's literally like compounding interest, but for invisible fees that you pay over a lifetime just to be agreeable and harmless. Seeking approval acts like this constant, slow leak of your imagination. By year 3, it's just a constant drain of your vitality. By year 5, all those small hesitations really start to compound. And by year 10, well, you're sitting there watching less talented, less experienced people surpass you, simply because they chose to live free of opinions while you chose to live inside them. It's genuinely absurd how much power we hand over to complete strangers, isn't it? The only real solution here is eviction. You literally have to kick out these mental tenants. A mental tenant is someone who lives in your thoughts, taking up all this valuable real estate, but contributing absolutely nothing to your actual growth. Honestly, nothing destroys your potential faster than seeking approval from those who refuse to give it. Every single moment you spend entertaining their imaginary judgment is a moment stolen directly from your actual purpose. So the very first act of mental freedom has to be their immediate eviction. That leads us right into Section 2, the law of inner ownership. It's time to defend your thoughts. To really wrap our heads around this law, think about the legendary industrialist Andrew Carnegie. When he was building his empire, people were constantly telling him his vision was way too bold, way too dangerous. But Carnegie understood that his mind was a secret estate. He treated discouraging remarks like actual trespassers on his property. Sure, he listened, but he didn't absorb it. He became a leader because he entirely refused to follow the fears of average men. Men follow me, he said, because I do not follow their fears. So you really have to decide today if you are going to be the landlord of your thoughts, installing absolute discipline at the gates, or if you're going to be a mere tenant, reacting to the temporary weather of other people's insecurities. The landlord says, okay, this idea may enter, but that doubt, that stays outside. The tenant, on the other hand, leaves the front door wide open for every passing rumor, criticism, and fear to just wander in and take control. You've got to guard your gates. To do that effectively, we need to completely reframe how you think about your energy. Section 3, your emotional economy. Guard your energy. Have you ever heard of emotional alchemy? The most successful minds operate on this exact principle. The industrialist Charles Schwab used this to treat his enthusiasm as literal capital. Every time he faced criticism or irritation, he didn't waste his energy arguing with small-minded people. That just costs way too much. Instead, he invested that emotion right back into his work. He literally converted frustration into fuel and forward motion. 10, that is the staggering number of years highly capable people bleed away simply by fighting invisible wars. Years lost to imagined foes who don't even care about them. When you squander your emotional economy on resentment or gossip or trying to prove yourself to the indifferent, you are essentially bankrupting your spirit. Your attention is your single most valuable currency, so spend it where it actually compounds. And to defend against that kind of bankruptcy, we turn to Section 4, the discipline of self-containment and the practice of inner stillness. Thomas Edison absolutely mastered this idea of self-containment. Back when the experts of his day told him that the electric lamp was completely impossible, he didn't stand around and argue with them. He didn't let their disbelief rent a single inch of space in his imagination. He essentially realized, their failure to believe has nothing to do with my right to prove. His right to prove his vision was completely independent of their failure to believe in it. He contained his own energy, generated his own validation, and, well, changed the entire world while they mocked him. I love this analogy. Think of yourself as a lighthouse. You can't control the wind, obviously, but you can build a roof. The passing weather is the noise, the opinions, and the panic of the crowd. The lighthouse, however, is an engine generating its own momentum. It stands completely unmoved by the storm, lit entirely from within, providing steady, reliable direction. When you become self-contained like that, you no longer depend on the crowd's applause, and you absolutely no longer fear their silence. But of course, all this containment requires a focused direction. So, Section 5, the fire of purpose, discovering your inner flame. The very moment you commit to a definite purpose, a remarkable filter activates in your life. You will naturally just stop being accessible to small thinking. You actually won't have the time or the energy for meaningless debates anymore. Purpose acts as a filter. It separates you from those who thrive on drama and hesitation, and it pulls you away from the shadows and directly toward those who are actually building something. Okay, let's get super practical here. The source material gives us a great daily habit for returning to yourself. How do you make this discipline an absolute instinct? Well, first, sit in silence before the world's noise even begins. Just get quiet. Second, speak your definite aim aloud to really anchor it in reality. And third, read your purpose repeatedly to program your subconscious. Doing this repetition builds a groove in your mind until acting with purpose flows as easily as breathing. And as you practice this daily, you cross a vital threshold into our final topic, Section 6, becoming the independent mind and mastering the self. Take a look at John D. Rockefeller. His chillingly calm words, "I can afford to wait," really prove that true patience isn't a delay. Actually, scratch that, it's more like supreme confidence in your own inner law. When markets panicked, he just smiled. He was completely unbothered by the haste of average men because he trusted his own careful sequence of cause and effect. That right there is the absolute hallmark of an independent mind, acting when principle directs, not when the crowd's emotion demands it. You see, the true independent mind operates on a few very specific principles. It listens to experts, sure, but it reserves its own decisions. It values solitude as a sacred duty where moral vision is refined. Titans like Abraham Lincoln and Henry Ford operated exactly this way. They took counsel from the world, and they observed widely, but they only ever obeyed their own divine conscience. They didn't reject the world, but they absolutely refused to be ruled by it. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. Will you continue to be a tenant in your own mind, paying rent to people who contribute absolutely nothing to your growth? Or are you going to reclaim your inner kingdom, harness your emotional economy, and step into your purpose right now? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.